Hi everyone, and welcome not only to the review for the BGVP DH5, the latest one, the 5-driver hybrid, but also a nice comparison of the BGVP with some other earphones that have been making the rounds. Firstly, the Geek World GQ10, which has been hyped quite a bit. Then the latest, I would say, flagship from KZ, the ZAS, and then the KBEar Robin, also their previous release before now the Aurora has come out. This was their release before that, so it's probably got about 2 months right now. And this is also a hybrid, a 1+4 in this case, 1+7. This is a hybrid 5-driver, 2 piezos, 2 dynamic drivers and 1 BA, so 5 drivers, 3 different styles, while those are 2 different types. And this is also a 2-type hybrid, DD plus BA. Anyway, just a quick run through the case. Nice presentation, nice printing, an improvement, let's put it that way, at least in my opinion. The box inside opens up this way, okay, and we are presented with a nice section of tips. Memory foam tips are the ones that I've actually got installed. I initially also heard them with the bass ear tips and with the vocal, but the vocal didn't really improve things that much compared to the bass ear tips, so I just left the bass ear tips and then installed now the memory foam tips. Will carry case, the usual warranty and stuff, okay, and then the final thing here in the puzzle is the cable, which is this cable over here, which is, it's okay, I mean, it's not a bad cable, let's be honest. And you have the choice of actually being able to get it in it's a QVC style connector, as you can see, okay, and you can get it in 2.5mm, which is what I did. Okay, anyway, so there we have it. Cable, accessories, pretty decent, and well, that's it. Going on to the IM itself, it's a light IM. It's got a relatively nice faceplate, and then, well, we can't see it because it's pretty dark, but basically all the BAs, actually let me try this something, maybe I will be able to show you guys. Okay, let's see if maybe like this you can actually get a glimpse. There we go, you see? So let's zoom it in a little bit. Okay, I hope you can see that. So the BAs all sit down here, all bundled up, and they've all got tubes going up. So it's not the usual affair that we get used to in the cheaper hybrids, where they just throw in the BAs where they want and hope for the best. No, there seems to be, or to have been, some engineering behind this, and things look at least to have had some thought behind them. Like I was saying, the fit is pretty decent. It's got a nice enough shape, not fatiguing in terms of weight or anything of the sort, just goes in nicely. Pretty long nozzle, and I installed the foam tips on the DH5 for the simple reason that, and this is going to be maybe sounding a little bit, this is going to maybe generate some controversy. Okay, the same way as we have the questions or the discussions about cables really making a difference or not, and in my opinion, I do believe that the overall impedance of the cable, the capacitance and the impedance that the cables introduce, will affect slightly the overall combination of impedance, the combination of impedance of the actual IM and the cable, and depending on how that comes out and how then it matches up with the impedance of the output of the amplifier or DAC amp that we're connecting it to, that will obviously have some effects. But I don't believe that it's an effect which is so significant that there's huge day and night differences. No, I don't go as far as that. Tips, in my opinion, or the make or break of a lot of IEMs. You choose the right tip, and that can yield amazing, phenomenal results. You choose the wrong tip, and a seemingly amazing earphone just a second ago becomes the biggest piece of crap ever. So tips, yes, tips definitely make a difference. And the BGVP DH5, this thing was trying to kill me. I mean, the amount of energy that it has up top, above 2K, it is just not, to my ears at least, and to my music taste, it is just not a pleasure. And it's a pity, because I was really trying to see if this would have been something worthwhile. And honestly, right now as it stands, DM3, also from BGVP, is, in my opinion, a far superior IEM. I'm actually going to grab it here. So the DM3, which I actually haven't reviewed, but will do soon. This is a very, very nice IEM compared to the DH5. It's only a 1+1, but it just seems to have come together nicer than the DH5, and it has its flaws, of course, but overall the presentation of the DM3 is, in my opinion, superior to the DH5. The cable that I'm using here is an aftermarket cable. As you can see, it's kind of same type of philosophy as a Fayal Hibiscus. Copper, 3.5mm. I've actually brought it down to 3.5mm. 2-pin connector. So I didn't have it in QDC, but that's fine. I mean, I'm not going to yank it or anything. And yeah, that's basically it. Okay, so how do things mix and match, and how do they all come together here? Well, if we remember, the Geek World was the subject of a lot of hype. Why? Because it was an interesting combination, not common and not heard too often at this price range of around $50, where we have two piezoelectric ceramic drivers for the ultra highs, matched up with a 1BA, a 7mm graphene driver for mids, and then an 8mm titanium for the bass. And what all of this concoction gave us was, and quality control issues aside, because that is the biggest drawback of this IEM, is you get one that is done right, and that was built right, and it's good, and it's quite something. It's not perfect, it's got loads of flaws as well, but it's very good. You get one like I have, which had huge channel imbalances, especially below 1K between the two units, and I had to retune them to at least try and get a bass that I could say is similar to what the good ones, the ones that went to the people that actually have the good ones have. So overall, it was, after being retuned and, well, trying to capture the tuning of it in its standard format, a fully workable one. The bass it's a warm bass, but that warmness is sometimes excessive. It sometimes becomes sluggish, and that detracts from the overall, I think, quality of the bass. There is some texture, but basically it's all about thumps and punch, and that, yes, that it does have good punch and good thumps and so on and so forth. But that excessive warmness also spoils things up top, and the next frequency range which comes to mind obviously is the mid-range, and it's very much affected by this warmish bass, this overly warmish bass. So it makes the mids become slightly recessed. It's not that it's a bad mid-range. It's actually pretty decent. Vocals are half decent, not amazing, but half decent. It's just that the mid-range gets spoiled by that sluggish bass and that over warmth of the bass that you get. So it just makes it a little bit dissatisfying. Timbre, tonality is very much off in my opinion. This mix and matching of various drivers with their individual characteristics in terms of resonance, frequencies, and so on and so forth. It wasn't. I think it was more of a case of throw it together. It worked. Oh wow, amazing! Don't do anything. Than really being carefully thought out and spec'd out and so on and so forth. So overall, I mean, it's a nice sounding IEM, and yes, the star of the show, yeah, definitely is the treble, which is, I mean, it's just extended, it's smooth, detailed, no sibilance that I could detect at least. I mean, the treble in the GQ10 is phenomenal. That's it. Okay, I'll just run through the IEMs and then I actually compare the two. Yeah, brings us to our second contender, the KZ ZAS. This, contrary to the Geek World, to the GQ10, which was more of a W kind of shape, this is definitely a V shape. It's a 1+7 hybrid. And personally, I mean, this is not the standard cable, as you can imagine. Personally, neither is it the standard tips. Personally, I find the IEM to have very good build quality. Some other reviewers have complained about it being too plasticky. I think the resin that they used here is actually pretty decent quality. The faceplate looks nice, even if it's just plastic, but it looks nice. It looks nice. It gives it a not premium feel, but it looks like you got something that is got some value. It's a fully transparent shell using the XUD dynamic driver, which is which was developed by KZ recently. Trying to see if I could actually show you how things are distributed inside. Yeah, let's hope so. Okay, so we have BAs all over the place basically, but they kind of surround the dynamic driver. I was trying to see if I could, but this is not easy. There we go. You see? There they are. They're all surrounding the dynamic driver. And they all have like these kind of mini tubes, which I think you can see there. And well, that's it. There's nothing. The majority of the BAs are not in the nozzle or above the dynamic driver. There is. Let me see if I maybe shine a light that we can maybe see this slightly better. There is one on the nozzle. This is hard. There's one in the nozzle, and then the rest is all around the actual driver. One over there, and then another 4 over there, if I'm mistaken, 4 or 5, and then in the nozzle. What is the sound of the KZ like? Well, it's a big departure from the previous ZAX, and I think that the thing that comes or that jumps straight away to you. Oh, and let me just mention that again, a topic which does generate some controversy, which is the fact of that drivers might or earphones might need braking periods and so on and so forth. I'm a believer that can happen. Yes, there can be cases where braking does make the difference, but I think most of the times you put something in your ears, and if it sounds good there, chances are that if there is a so-called break in, they will improve their sound. If it doesn't sound good first time around, most likely it's not going to sound good after 50 or 60 hours of listening to them either. But there are some rare occasions, and the ZAS is one of those rare occasions. It's an IM that when you first listen to it, you immediately feel that the sound is very dark, very bass heavy, and you don't really like it too much. However, you give it a couple of hours, you give it a few hours, you let it play music and so on and so forth, and then it starts surprising you. The bass is very good. I mean, there's monstrous quantities of bass here, loads of rumble and punch, and the speed is actually pretty good. It's not a sluggish bass in that aspect. The mids, it's a mixed bag. They are slightly recessed as compared to the bass, which is obviously very, very strong. And you know, if you choose your tips carefully, which I did, I used BGVP wide bore, then yes, then there is some quality in the mid-range in terms of vocals and so on. Instruments actually are played very nicely on the ZAS. So yeah, the highs, again, a departure from the usual KZ signature. The KZs usually of the past were very mid-bass focused, nothing in the mids, and then loads of treble, and it just made for a fatiguing listen. And this has been a departure in the sense that the bass is more sub-bass focused, in my opinion. Loads and loads of quantities of bass of pretty decent quality. I'm not going to say it, that it's not. The mids are slightly recessed, but you can see that they're nicely balanced out. There's been some work there. And then the highs, that's where things really are surprised, because they are very tame. If you actually look at the graph of the KZ, it sounds very dark. Even you might think that it will sound very dark, and it's not the case. It's very easy to listen to. It's non-fatiguing. It's a very versatile IM. I know of some people that actually use it for gaming because of its positioning capabilities. So yeah, that's basically in a nutshell what the ZAS is about. It's not a very technical IM, no. Timbre it's not off or on. Sometimes it's very good, and other times it's just terrible. That's the reality. The soundstage on these is not the widest. It's okay in terms of depth, but not the widest. So yeah, that's basically it. Detail retrieval, like I mentioned, nothing to write home about. Seriously, it's a simple, honest IM that I don't think has any pretensions of being anything else but that. Bass heavy, so it will please those looking for loads of bass, definitely. The final one here is the KBEar Robin, which when I reviewed it, I said it was kind of a case, in my opinion, of repackage, retune, and reuse. So the similarities of the Robin to other previous IEMs, and the case in point of the CCA C10 and the ZS10 Pro, in terms of not only the configuration but shell, everything. It's very interesting how it's very similar. Obviously, there's been differences in terms of the dynamic driver. This dynamic driver, I'm sure, has its origins in the KS1, and when you actually graph it, there is a lot of similarities in the up to 1K area, and then well, like I was saying, it's a V-shaped signature. it's an easy listen. It's nothing that's gonna be fatiguing you. The bass is a little bit sluggish, but I think it's because it's excessive, and that overly warmth makes it just make things more sluggish. So it kind of suffers of the same problem a little bit of the bass in the Geek World, which is it's sometimes overly warm, and that just spoils in things going up. The bass here is warm, but it's in the KZ it's warm, but it's got somehow some punch, some quality, some speed to it, and that just makes it for me, out of all of these IEMs, the one that has the best bass. Mids and highs are relatively flat. I mean, there's a good amount of clarity. There's decent enough voice reproduction. I didn't find the mids in any way recessed. Let's put it that way. Although we have that sometimes excessive bass, which would lead us to perhaps have recessed mids. I didn't find that recessed. Well, it is what it is. Again, it's another very very unpretentious IEM, not wanting to be nothing else but what it is. So it's a nice, easy listen, half decent mid-range and treble with a overly warm sometimes bass, but altogether pretty good package the way it comes together. I mean, if I actually have to touch up on that issue of how coherent have these IEMs been put together, then definitely yes, the one that has perhaps the least coherence in the integration of the drivers is the Geek World, while the KZ with all its flaws and the KBEar again with all its flaws, they seem to have matched everything a little bit nicer. That finally brings us to our star here, which is the BGVP DH5, and what can I say about this IEM? I don't like it. I didn't want to be perhaps so blunt, but it's honestly it was a disappointment. It was a disappointment because with silicone tips, this thing is trying to murder me at every second. It just shouts. It doesn't sync. You can definitely see that the focus has been on the mid-range. The bass is it's there, but it's very thin. It's very recessed. It's more the mid-range here. That's the one that's been pumped up to level 20. The highs as well, very pronounced, and I don't know. I just cannot understand what was going through the head of the engineers, because, like I mentioned, the DM3, which I have over there as well, for me is a superior IEM to the DH5. And one has to see that there isn't that much of a price difference. I mean, this is about $79 give or take, and the DM3 is about $69. So that's a 1 + 1, and this is a 1 + 4. So what gives here? I think that one definitely has been more well thought out, in my opinion, than the DH5. The disappointment that I had with him was so pronounced that, like I said, I tried various tips and cable swapping and so on and so forth, and I actually ended up with the foam tips that it brings and with this copper cable, because that's the only combination that makes things half bearable in terms of the mid-range and high frequency. Soundstage, well, the technicalities, let's put it that way, the soundstage and imaging and detailed retrieval, they are all in my opinion, below par. I was expecting more. I'll be honest. I was expecting much more. yeah, so to now compare all of them very quickly, because this now being a pretty long review, I don't want to bore you guys. They all have their strengths and weaknesses, obviously, but definitely the BGVP doesn't stand a chance against the rest of them. It's an overly bright IM that is very easy to get fatigued. Although it fits nicely and it's not heavy and everything, you're going to get fatigued with this thing very quickly. The Geek World, its biggest issue here is the very bad quality control. You might get a good unit, you might get a bad unit, and I think that's a gamble that, I mean, fair enough, it's $50 give or take, but do you really want to take that gamble and end up with something that maybe then works just as a I don't know, keychain or something? KZ, with the right tips, in this case BGVP 07s is the ones that I'm using, or the KBEar 07s as well. They're basically the same tip. With the right tips that work for you, and a half decent cable, why not? These things are fantastic. They might not be the best in terms of the technicalities, but what they offer in the other departments of being a fun IM to listen with and pretty capable across most genres, I think makes it probably my number one in this comparison. Yeah, and the KBEar, the Robin, I'll probably give it a second place together with the Geek World, in that it's got such a nice smooth sound to it that you can forgive its sluggishness in the bass. You can forgive that there's a little bit more detail that could have been had. You know, at least I can forget it. I can forgive it. And really, its biggest flaw or lack of is really the highs. This needs a little bit more highs. And so, well, I think you can see where this leaves us with the BGVP. I mean, first place, second place, and the BGVP a very distant third place, to be honest. It was seriously a disappointment. I was expecting a little bit more from BGVP with regards to this, because it would have been an interesting comparison. So yeah, just one last time to a quick recap. Amazing highs, quality control here is not good. Nice, you know, warm, inviting sound, just needed a bit more highs to be a little bit more balanced out. KZ's has got, once they've broken in, once you've gotten that stage out of the way, they're the ones that have the most interesting sound. Can be overly bassy sometimes, but it's a good quality bass, so you don't really mind it. And the BGVP, I would say, is a pass. Just get something else. Honestly, get any one of these three, because this was really not a good try. Okay, anyway guys, thank you very much, and speak to you soon. Take care.